Well, over the past few days, a bombshell revelation from a Pentagon insider, a whistleblower, who's come forward to admit that the United States has alien craft, off-world vehicles that we've been reverse engineering for many, many years. They've been suppressing it from the public. And this whistleblower came forward with a complaint about this suppression. Listen to David Grush with this complaint.
When you say crash retrieval, what do you mean?
These are retrieving non-human origin technical vehicles, call it spacecraft if you will. It's probably not the right parlance, but no kidding, non-human, exotic origin vehicles that have either landed or crashed.
We have spacecraft from another species.
We do, yeah.
How many?
Quite a number.
So immediately alarm bells go off. Is this a psychological operation? How legitimate is this? Haven't we known this for many, many years? What is actually going on here? Well, someone who's been diving deep into this is Joshua Reed from the Red Pill Project, diving through emails and documents and sources on this to find out if this individual is legitimate or are we facing a psychological operation. And I'm thrilled to welcome Joshua to Redacted for the first time. Joshua, welcome.
Thanks, Clayton. Appreciate you having me here.
Absolutely. So, I have to say, being around this game, the paranormal game, for so many years, and being around these people who've worked on these secret space projects and so forth, and to hear these revelations, my immediate reaction always is, why now? Is this a psychological operation? And many in our audience would believe that is the case. But you've uncovered some very fascinating information. I'd love for you to share it with our audience. And what have you discovered about this guy, David, and his history?
Yeah, listen, I spent 10 years in the United States Navy. I worked on missile weapons defense systems. I've had my own experiences while in the Navy with these types of things, 2004, 2006 specifically. So I'm familiar with this. I've been studying this topic for well over 2.5 decades. I've been a researcher, investigator in this stuff. I do my own shows, investigations, research. And this topic just fascinates me, especially more so in recent years. When this broke, there was something that caught my interest, and this was Inspector General McCullough, who was his lawyer representing him. And so there's a backstory behind Inspector General McCullough. If people remember this gentleman was the Inspector General of the intelligence community that was testifying on the Hillary Clinton email scandal back in 2015 with Congressman Chaffetz in Congress. When he was asked what was in these emails, he came out and said they're Orcon, they're SAP projects. I can't tell you this. They're classified. It's a need to know. Only me and my team had a summary briefing on these SAP programs. We learned from the Horowitz report, Hillary Clinton had metadata, sending it to an email address that was tied to potentially a Chinese company. And that's kind of where these emails were floating around going to China. My research for the last 4 years has uncovered what potentially was in those emails Hillary Clinton was forwarding and replying to. And what we find is we know that they're somehow connected to SAP programs, special access programs, the highest, most classified programs of our military, DOD, DOE, NASA. Well, when Donald Trump came in, Mike Pompeo shut down all these educational exchange programs that Barack Obama had started. And so my investigation really started early on. I was looking 1998, Bill Clinton giving nuclear secrets away, 2006, various different nuclear incidences, 2008, nuclear incidences. And what we see this pattern of military technology being inadvertently traded with the enemy, whether it's China, foreign adversaries, or whoever. And so I started looking at this pattern. And I noticed that when Donald Trump came in, the DOJ began investigating various different colleges, universities, and professors and started arresting them. Everybody remembers Harvard professor Charles Lieber, who was arrested, who was recently just sentenced. Well, he was one of many. The one thing that all of these professors that got arrested have in common is they all have NSF, National Science Foundation contracts, which were special access programs. So by looking at this and kind of breaking it down, we come to find out that Hillary Clinton, the special access program emails that she was sending to this Gmail address that were potentially being looked at by China were the universities and the professors that were getting these grants to reverse engineer the various different technologies in these SAP programs. If we remember Bob Lazar's documentary, he said that due to the compartmentalization, we'll never reverse engineer any of this technology unless we get it into the universities. For the longest time, the other side of the deep state's been trying to get their hands on this. So now this revelation comes up that Hillary Clinton's emails were potentially selling this information to China, other foreign adversaries of these SAP programs. China would come in, fund that university, bring that professor over to China, get the information out of these professors of whatever SAP programs they were working on, and then highly advance their technology in 1 decade to become equivalent with the United States of America. So Inspector General McCullough is this man who was read into these programs specifically. Now, Clayton, this is where it gets really interesting. I was talking to one of my sources last night about this project, or about what just happened with this whistleblower. This is what he told me, and he actually predicted that this event was going to happen. He said that there's more than one whistleblower. I think there's three, approximately three. The other two are the ones who have the first-hand information on this. Not only that, but they have the actual evidence. They have video, photographic evidence of what happened. And we know this because when they filed a whistleblower complaint, they had a fear for their life. They're transitioning out of their careers in the military and the intelligence community. They're transitioning into defense contracting. One of them knew the location of where these craft are supposedly stored. And so they feared for their life that potentially there could be pushback on them, and they felt the need to come forth on this. So they went to the whistleblowers intelligence community. They got introduced to congressmen. They testified in front of a group of congressmen. Now, we've heard of an Indiana congressman. Well, we can confirm this later, but it's, from what I'm hearing, it's Andre Carson. Andre Carson is this congressman that they testified in front of, along with a few others. And the congressman didn't take these guys seriously. But what ended up happening is they pulled out the evidence, a DVD, and they showed these congressmen video evidence of intelligence community members communicating with extraterrestrials. After these videos were shown to congressmen, they were noticeably shaken in fear. One of them was holding a piece of paper and could not stop shaking. Another was drinking water profusely. And this is when they began to take this very, very seriously and introduce these gentlemen to the former Inspector General of the intelligence community, McCullough. Hence, he enters the picture as someone who understands these SAP programs, been read into these programs from back in the day, and is now representing these gentlemen. And there's more here too, but I know you got some comments on this.
Well, yeah, I mean, a lot comes to mind here, right? So that all sounds legitimate, right? That it absolutely sounds legitimate. But then my mind goes to the cynical. I've just become such a cynical bastard in my older age now. Like, and I know you are too, probably in that world covering these stories, which is, you know, you see Senator Marco Rubio over a number of years, over the past few years, really publicly talking about this. I've interviewed him a couple of times, not specifically on this subject, but where he has wanted to extend, of course, the Space Force, the concern about this threat, right? And this is where I wonder if these guys are being fed this information. They're being fed this information to come forward in front of these members of Congress, scare these members of Congress on purpose. See, this is where my cynical mind goes, right? So they're scaring them on purpose. They immediately hook them up with the former head of the Inspector General. We've got a great lawyer for you. By the way, he's read in on this. He'll take care of your whistleblower complaints, because, as you know, whistleblowers very often have a difficult time even getting lawyers. Often even private practice, it's very difficult. So the fact that they got the guy to protect them in this way, you know, raises alarm bells for me. So are they being used? And of course, there's a long history of people being used, right? In this, as it relates to UFOs. I mean, there's books written on it. Of course, there's many books written on that specific part of this. So what do you make of that? Just role play this out with me a little bit here. Am I being too cynical here, or is this maybe more?
Well, I would be right along there with you on this assumption, except for what I was told recently. One of these whistleblowers is a retiring Air Force pilot who was the pilot in the 1990s of the Varginha incident in Brazil. He is the one that went down there with the military, recovered the 2 alien bodies and the alien aircraft that James Fox did the Moment of Contact with documentary. He is the man who was there, who did this event. He, along with the other ones, are the ones who provided this evidence. They've been in part of these programs for a while now. And that's kind of all I can say on that matter. But there is a lot of legitimacy behind these other 2 whistleblowers that we're not seeing right now.
So I want to talk about the whistleblower piece of this, because here's what I think. I think absolutely that's the case, that we've had recovered craft. I think the sources that I've spoken to over the years have confirmed that to me, that we have recovered craft, that they've actively been doing the reverse engineering, recovered bodies, all of that, I believe 100% is accurate. The question I have is, what do they do with that information now? Why are we starting to hear about that? Are they going to treat it as a threat and get us to be scared of it in order to further build up the military-industrial complex? And so I don't discount that part of it at all. I'm 100% in on that. It's the what do we do with that info piece that I'm worried that some of these whistleblowers, maybe they're being used in some way, and that's what I'm scared about. I want to believe that these whistleblowers 100% accurate. They're coming through because they have real concerns and they are bringing this forward. What do you say to that? I'm just curious your thoughts on that part of it.
Yeah. Listen, man, I've thought about Project Bluebeam for the longest time, that one day maybe these people are going to try to utilize this technology to usher in a new space race, a new weapons race, to go out and, to pump up the military industrial complex. I think her name is Carolyn Roslin, who was the former lab assistant to Wernher von Braun in the 1970s on his deathbed, who talked about the originations of Project Bluebeam, of how they'll use this technology against us when it's really going to be us, a breakaway space civilization. I think that what we're seeing right now, and this is what I've seen in the overall global unfolding conspiracy, is that we have multiple factions that are rising up to the power base, that are fighting against this westernized New World Order. We have the Eastern New World Order that's formulating, and you have various factions that are pushing back against it. And like the Donald Trumps, the Elon Musk, these people that, are elitist, but they're like, hey, look, we're not all about everything else that's happening here. We want sovereignty, we want freedom, we want liberty, we want freedom of speech. And I think these people are helping to push this information to come forth, because the sooner people can learn about the lies and the deception and the secrets and get this information out into the public, the better it helps to bring down these people that deceived us for a very, very long time. One interesting part of this is one of the words that has been discussed within this congressional hearing with these whistleblowers is the word supernatural. That they describes a lot of this stuff as supernatural. Now, we don't have any more information on this. I think that a lot more information is going to come out over the next few days and weeks. But apparently, and this is coming from other sources that I've heard, is that a lot of the Mar-a-Lago raid that happened on Donald Trump has to do with some of these documents that we're talking about, documents on UFOs. And this pertains to the Hillary Clinton emails, because if you remember on September 6, 2020, December 20th, 2020, Donald Trump came on Twitter and declassified all information for Crossfire Hurricane and Hillary Clinton email scandal. He did this twice publicly on Twitter. And apparently this is what they were looking for. They were looking for this Trump card, the smoking gun that he had, his insurance policy. And apparently they didn't find it from people I know over at Mar-a-Lago. They didn't find very much of what they were looking for. And everything that they're saying they found, they're actually throwing into the mix themselves and kind of lying about. So this could get very interesting. Donald Trump said a month ago that 2024 is the final battle, that we are coming up to the end of this deception, this corruption, that it's either America moves forward or America falls into Marxism. And I know that you know that we're very close to this. And so right. I think that over the next 18 months, we're about to see a plethora of information start coming out pertaining to this topic specifically, because this is the one that really interconnects everything else, especially this agenda that's being perpetuated by these global elite.
Yeah, and I think there is. I think you hit the nail on the head. There is infighting right now. We've had that confirmed by the likes of journalist Whitney Webb and others. There's interagency fighting at the highest levels right now, and it may have something to do with the USAF and their involvements in secret space program pieces, and the pushback from other parts of the Department of Defense that are not up on that and don't have access to what they have. So you have this really interesting infighting right now in the intelligence community and the Pentagon, and it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. I want to go back to really quickly the whistleblowers and this idea that two more could come forward here. One of the complaints that I've heard from a former FBI agent who I spoke to on this said that the problem that he had with the whistleblower testimony or the whistleblower coming forward is that usually you have sort of whistleblower rage, meaning you're complaining against something because it's violating every fiber of your being in a way. Look at Garrett O'Boyle, look at the people that testified in the weeks ago in front of Congress, of course, for having their lives ruined with the weaponization of the FBI and the intelligence state. And he kind of painted a picture differently than what we were seeing from David Grush. What specifically is the complaint? Well, what is the complaint from these whistleblowers where they felt like their life was in jeopardy? They felt like that this was in violation of every fiber of their being. I'm just curious on that piece of it. You probably have a lot more knowledge in depth on that side of it, given the fact that these other whistleblowers were involved. Could you speak to that a little bit?
Well, yeah, and one of my best friends is actually a DOD whistleblower, certified DOD whistleblower during the Trump administration. And he absolutely has that rage, and he was targeted and persecuted. He lost his clearances. He lost, his over 20-year career in the military. He lost his pension. He lost all of this stuff. It ended up getting it back, and now he's doing better, and he's still got his complaints out there. With this, from what I've been told, is this was clearly about self-preservation, is that apparently one of the whistleblowers knows the location of where these craft are being kept, and it had came out into the public somehow. Something had happened where it came out in the public, and he was afraid for his life, and this is what prompted that specifically. And the talk on the whistleblower aspect of this, like Grush, he's 34 years old. His career is over. If there's no legitimacy to this and nothing else happens from this, he's done. His clearance is gone. They will retaliate against him. He'll never work in the industry again. The same thing with these other two men who are potentially going to move on to defense contractors. Their lives are over if they're lying about this, if this is bad information, if they're being prompted to give this information out there and it's not real or fake. They're done. And so there's a lot at risk coming out publicly about this information that these men are going to be facing. So I think that also brings a level of legitimacy to this story, because why would you lie? And if you're not knowingly lying, you're being fed this information, well, then at least you're coming out in good faith to bring this information forward. And there's got to be at least some truth in it, because here's the thing is there wouldn't be a classified version and then a declassified version. There wouldn't be video evidence, DVDs shown to Congress, which made them noticeably shake if this was false information, at least in my perspective.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I had not heard that part of the story. And that does provide a significant level of legitimacy there to this. So thank you for that. And I think you're right about that. If they came across or stumbled across information where they knew that these bodies were being kept, where these craft were being held, whether it's Wright-Patterson Air Force Base or MacDill Air Force Base or these other places, and they knew and this information had gotten out and they were fearing for their lives, that could lend a level of credence that we hadn't heard before. What about these DVDs? And what about these craft and this evidence? Do we know where that evidence sits? And so many in our audience, I'm sure in your audience as well, would say, when can we see this video? When can we see these DVDs? Where is that? Will we ever get to see it?
So from what I am hearing is the evidence is their insurance policy. It is in the hands of two prominent UFO researchers. And yes, that they've seen this evidence, they verified it. That's why a lot of this is being pushed and interviews are coming. I don't know if this evidence is going to be coming out into the public because it is their insurance policy.
Right.
But I will say that one of the most prominent UFO documentarists out there has this information apparently.
okay, I think I know who that is. And wow, that's fantastic. And I hope we get to see it, because for some people, they won't believe it until a craft lands on their house. And despite all of the high-level members of the military who on their deathbed have come forward about this program, written extensively about it, almost went to their grave holding this information privately, where family members felt the need to even come forward and clear their parents' names because of there's so much now, overwhelming evidence on this. But again, people want to see the visuals. They want to see a craft landing on their front lawn in order to, the day the earth stood still style, to actually have this confirmation of it. So you believe in the next few days, we're going to hear more about this, and we could hear from these other whistleblowers. Do you think that they will come forward, the other two that you spoke about?
I think that it's a matter of time. I think that they will eventually come forward, at least one of the other ones. And I don't know if it's going to be the next few days, next few weeks. I know there's another expose coming out this Sunday, I believe, from the debrief and a few others. I know there was an interview dropped last night from a French newspaper, which is kind of odd, from Grush. He did an interview with a French newspaper. We know he can't be paid for money because of this information, because he is a whistleblower. So that was kind of odd, but I think that over the next few weeks, we're probably going to have more information come forth. And this could potentially be the people that come forth that start off this cascade event. We got to remember, back in December of 2022, Congress said that, look, this is black budget money. This is not sanctioned congressional money. Anybody taking part in these programs, we can prosecute you. These are illegal programs. And so we're urging these people to come forth, because if we find out you're involved in these projects afterwards, we can bring criminal proceedings up against you. So this is another threat to these people who are working on these projects to come forth and become whistleblowers and bring this information forward.
Yeah, these black book off the books projects that not being run through Congress. Joshua Reed from the Red Pill Project. We appreciate you joining us. Redpills.tv. Great stuff, really fascinating, and I can't wait to see more about this. I eat, breathe, and sleep this stuff. So I for one am excited we're having these discussions here, and we're being adults about it. Gone are the days, I hope, of local newscasts at the end of their newscast doing a UFO story and they play X-Files music under it. Really childish stuff. Like, we're having high-level adult conversations about something that I think is one of the biggest stories of all time. So thank you for bringing this to us.
Thanks, Clayton. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for watching this segment here at Redacted. We are live every day at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, trying to share the stories that the mainstream media will not cover. You should also come over and join our community of Redacted Rebels over at redacted.inc. That's our private locals community where we can share exclusive content that we simply cannot share here on YouTube. Come over and join the rebellion together right now by going to redacted.inc. We'll see you next time.